You know who I'm talking about. Those hulking, horned figures in Demon Slayer, with powers that can warp the very fabric of the world. You felt their chilling presence in Jujutsu Kaisen, where ancient curses take on monstrous forms. They've haunted your nightmares in Hell's Paradise, where demons and monsters blur the line between supernatural horror and tragic humanity. They are the iconic demons of Japanese culture, the Oni. They're terrifying villains, tragic anti-heroes, and sometimes even goofy sidekicks. They are, without a doubt, one of the greatest and most recognizable icons of Japanese folklore. But here's the thing. The creatures that haunt the pages of modern manga are a far cry from the ancient, genuinely terrifying beings that have stalked the nightmares of Japan for over a millennium. The pop culture Oni is a shadow, an echo of a much deeper and much more complicated mythology that stretches back to Japan's earliest recorded history. These aren't just monsters born from the imagination of mangaka. They're the distilled essence of fears, beliefs, and spiritual concepts that have shaped Japanese culture for centuries. Modern anime has given us sympathetic demons like Nezuko from Demon Slayer, who fights against her monstrous nature. We've seen complex antagonists like Sukuna from Jujutsu Kaisen, whose power transcends mortal understanding. But these contemporary interpretations, as brilliant as they are, represent just the tip of an iceberg that goes much, much deeper. So, what if I told you the real story is far more terrifying? What if I told you that the original Oni weren't just monsters, but forces of nature, enforcers of cosmic law, and sometimes even protectors? What if the creatures that inspired your favorite anime villains were once considered essential guardians of moral order, whose very existence maintained the balance between good and evil? The answer is more complex and, frankly, more horrifying than you might imagine. To understand the Oni that inspires your favorite anime, we need to journey back in time, to a fortress on a misty mountain, through the shadowy corridors of Buddhist hell, and into the very heart of Japanese spiritual belief. We need to meet the most infamous Oni of them all, explore the cosmic forces they represent, and discover why these ancient monsters continue to captivate us today. Our story kicks off in Japan's Heian period, roughly 794 to 1185 CE, a time of emperors and samurai, elegant court poetry, and refined culture, but also a time when the line between the natural and supernatural was dangerously thin. This was an era when aristocrats consulted on myoji, court magicians, before making important decisions, when every shadow could hide a spirit, and when the capital city of Kyoto was carefully planned to ward off supernatural threats. But even the best spiritual defenses couldn't stop what was coming. A shadow has fallen over the capital. Noble women are vanishing without a trace, not just commoners, but daughters of powerful court families, women whose disappearances send shockwaves through the imperial court. Panic turns to terror as rumors spread of a monstrous band of marauders, led by a creature of unimaginable power, operating from a fortress that exists somewhere between the physical world and the realm of nightmares. His name is Shutendoji, a name that roughly translates to the little drunken boy. But there is nothing small or childish about him. This is irony of the cruelest sort, a diminutive name for a creature that stands over 15 feet tall. Legends, which vary from telling to telling across different regions and time periods, describe him as a towering giant with crimson skin that gleams like fresh blood, a wild mane of flame-red hair that moves as if alive, and multiple curved horns jutting from his forehead like a demonic crown. His eyes burn with an intelligence that's both ancient and malevolent. This isn't a mindless beast, but a calculating predator who delights in psychological as well as physical torment. His lair is a demonic palace on Mount Oi, northwest of Kyoto, significantly in the direction of the Kimin or Demon Gate, the direction from which evil traditionally enters. This isn't just a cave or crude dwelling, but a twisted mirror of imperial architecture, complete with grand halls, ornate decorations made from human bones, and chambers designed specifically for the most elaborate forms of torture and degradation. It's a place of non-stop, debauched parties where captured nobles are forced to serve as entertainment before becoming the main course. Shutendoji's thirst for sake is legendary, matched only by his cruelty and his supernatural cunning. He doesn't just kill his victims, he savors their fear, plays elaborate psychological games, and takes perverse pleasure in corruption. He and his gang of Oni feast on the flesh of their captives, and in some versions, drink their blood from elaborate sake cups crafted from human skulls. The palace echoes with screams by day and demonic laughter by night, a sound that carries on the wind all the way to Kyoto, driving sensitive individuals to madness. What makes Shuten Doji particularly terrifying isn't just his physical power, it's his intelligence and charisma. He's capable of sophisticated planning, political manipulation, and even charm when it suits his purposes. Some versions of the legend suggest he can appear as a handsome young man to lure victims, revealing his true form only when it's too late for them to escape. Desperate, the emperor calls upon his greatest warrior, the hero Minamoto no Reiko, and his 4 loyal retainers, Watanabe no Tsuna, Sakata no Kintoki, Orabe no Sutake, and Yuzui Sadamitsu. These aren't just any samurai, they're legendary figures in their own right, each with supernatural abilities and weapons blessed by the gods. But they know a direct assault is suicide. Oni have supernatural strength that can shatter steel, command over dark magic that can twist reality, and an army of lesser demons at their command. So, they come up with a plan built on deception and divine intervention. The gods themselves, specifically the Shinto deities Sumiyoshi, Kumano, and Hachiman, appear to the heroes in disguise, providing them with enchanted sake, magical helmets that can resist demonic influence, and the spiritual protection necessary to enter the demon realm and return alive. Disguised as wandering mountain monks, Yamabushi, complete with traditional robes, prayer beads, and the mannerisms of holy men, Reiko and his men make the treacherous journey to the Oni fortress. The very air grows thicker and more oppressive as they climb, filled with an otherworldly miasma that would kill ordinary men. Strange sounds echo from the shadows, not quite animal, not quite human, and the very rocks seem to shift when observed from the corner of the eye. They're met by Shuten Doji himself, who, despite his monstrous nature, observes a twisted form of hospitality. Amused by the apparent courage of these monks to venture into his domain, and perhaps sensing an opportunity for particularly elaborate entertainment, he invites them to join his feast. This is both honor and trap. To refuse would be to reveal their true nature, but to accept means participating in an act of such profound evil that it could damn their souls. The heroes are served a banquet that is a grotesque parody of imperial court dining. Human flesh is presented as delicacies, blood is served in precious cups, and the screams of current victims provide a soundtrack to the meal. Reiko and his men must pretend to eat and drink, all while maintaining their disguise and fighting down their horror and revulsion. It's a test of will that pushes them to the very limits of human endurance. They pretend to consume the offerings, and in turn, offer the demon lord their own special sake, a divine, enchanted brew given to them by the gods themselves, secretly laced with a powerful sleeping potion that can affect even supernatural beings. The sake appears normal, but contains the concentrated essence of purity, the antithesis of everything the Oni represents. Shuten Doji, living up to his name and confident in his own invincibility, chugs it without a second thought, even complimenting its flavor. As the Demon King and his followers slump into an unnatural stupor, the first peaceful silence the fortress has known in decades, Reiko and his warriors throw off their disguises and reveal their true identities and purpose. They find Shuten Doji in his private bedchamber, his true, monstrous form revealed in all its terrifying glory. Even unconscious, he radiates an aura of malevolence so powerful that lesser men would flee in terror. The heroes work together to pin down his massive limbs, each as thick as a tree trunk and capable of crushing stone. As his 4 retainers hold the demon lord fast, Reiko draws his legendary sword, Dojijiri, literally Oni Cutter, a blade forged with holy rituals and blessed by Buddhist monks. With one powerful strike, channeling all his skill, strength, and righteous fury, he decapitates the demon lord. But the horror isn't over. Even severed from its body, the demon's head flies through the air like a malevolent comet, fangs snapping, trying to take Reiko's head in one last vengeful bite. This is the final test. The Oni's hatred and evil are so powerful that death itself cannot immediately contain them. Protected by his divine helmet, Reiko survives the supernatural assault, and the head finally crumbles to dust. The heroes free the remaining captives, traumatized nobles who have witnessed horrors beyond description, burn the demonic fortress to the ground with purifying flames, and return to Kyoto as living legends. The sword used to kill Shuten Doji becomes one of Japan's great treasures, passed down through generations and still preserved today as a testament to this victory of good over evil. The story of Shuten Doji provides a dramatic picture, But the folklore behind the Oni is even more detailed and complex, representing centuries of evolving beliefs, cultural exchange, and spiritual development. The word Oni, guli, itself is linguistically fascinating and reveals much about how these creatures were originally conceived. One popular etymology traces Oni to the ancient Japanese word onu, meaning hidden or concealed, because they were originally thought to be invisible spirits causing disasters, plagues, and unexplained phenomena. This connects to the fundamental Japanese belief in mono no ku, malevolent spirits that could possess people or cause illness and misfortune. But the term was also heavily influenced by the Chinese character for ghost or demon, guai, which referred to spirits of the dead and malevolent supernatural entities. When Buddhism arrived in Japan in the 6th century, it brought with it detailed cosmologies of heaven and hell, complete with elaborate descriptions of demons, tortures, and the afterlife. These Buddhist concepts merged with existing Shinto beliefs about kami, spirits, and yokai, supernatural creatures, creating the modern conception of Oni as we know them today. Over time, and with heavy influence from Buddhist concepts of jigaku, hell, they gained their iconic physical forms and their role in the cosmic order. So let's break down the classic Oni in all their terrifying detail. Visually, they're giants, typically anywhere from 8 to 15 feet tall, with builds that suggest immense physical power. Their skin comes in primary colors that have symbolic meaning. Red represents rage and violence, blue symbolizes cunning and malice, green indicates envy and corruption, and the rare black Oni represents the ultimate evil. Their faces are grotesque parodies of human features, with wild hair that seems to move with a life of its own, razor-sharp claws that can rend steel, and one or more horns, usually curved like those of an ox, but sometimes straight and needle-sharp. And that iconic loincloth they always seem to wear. It's made from a tiger pelt, and this isn't just a random fashion statement. This detail connects to one of the most sophisticated aspects of Japanese cosmology and reveals the deep symbolic thinking behind Oni design. The northeast direction is known as the Kimen, or the Demon Gate, the direction from which evil and misfortune traditionally enter the world. In Japanese cosmology, directions are associated with zodiac animals, and the northeast is governed by the ox, Ushi, and the tiger, Tora. So the Oni has ox horns and wears a tiger skin loincloth, marking him as a living embodiment of the directional source of all bad luck and evil influence. Their weapon of choice is the kanabo, a massive iron club studded with spikes or knobs. These weapons are often described as being as tall as a man and weighing hundreds of pounds, usable only by creatures of supernatural strength. The kanabo became so associated with Oni that it led to a Japanese proverb, Oni and Ikanabo, which means an Oni with an iron club. The phrase describes making someone who's already powerful even more unstoppable, like giving advanced weapons to someone who's already invincible. But the physical description is just the beginning. What's truly fascinating about Oni is their place in the cosmic order. According to Buddhist lore, they're not independent creatures but servants of Emio, Great Lord Enma, the supreme judge and ruler of Jigaku, or Hell. This makes them part of an elaborate bureaucracy of the afterlife, complete with hierarchies, specialized roles, and specific functions in the cosmic system of justice. In this role, they are the brutal but necessary enforcers who carry out gruesome punishments on wicked souls. The Buddhist hell isn't just a place of random suffering. It's a complex system of rehabilitation through punishment, where different sins receive specific tortures designed to purge evil from the soul. The Oni administering these punishments aren't acting out of cruelty, though they may enjoy their work, but serving a vital function in the moral universe. Some of the most detailed descriptions of Oni come from Buddhist texts describing the various levels of hell. There are Oni who specialize in particular tortures. Some wield giant scissors to cut out lying tongues, others operate elaborate machines that crush the bones of murderers, and still others tend to pits of boiling oil for those guilty of greed. Each punishment is precisely calibrated to the sin, and each type of Oni is specialized for its particular role in this cosmic justice system. But not all Oni stay in hell. In some tales, a human who commits acts of such profound evil, murder, betrayal, cruelty beyond measure, can transform into an Oni while still alive, their soul so corrupted that it physically manifests their inner evil. These living Oni are the most dangerous because they retain human intelligence and knowledge while gaining supernatural power and losing all moral constraints. Shuten Doji himself is often described as having been human once, a brilliant but corrupt court official whose descent into evil eventually transformed him into the monster of legend. This is a stark contrast to many modern anime interpretations, where demons are often portrayed as a separate species created by a single antagonist, or are made through curses, infections, or magical transformations that strip away human identity. The folkloric Oni represents something far more psychologically complex and morally sophisticated. They are a direct consequence of human moral choices and a fundamental part of a cosmic justice system that operates according to precise spiritual laws. The transformation from human to Oni isn't random or arbitrary. It's the inevitable result of choices that progressively strip away humanity until only monstrous appetite remains. This makes them both terrifying and tragic because they represent the ultimate consequence of moral failure, the end point of a path that any human could theoretically walk. But here's where the story gets really interesting, and where Western audiences often misunderstand the true complexity of Oni mythology. For all their association with terror, chaos, and hellfire, Oni are not purely evil entities. Their whole identity is built on a fundamental paradox that reflects the sophisticated moral thinking of traditional Japanese culture. Remember their primary role in Buddhist cosmology? They punish sinners in hell. Their methods are brutal and their appearance is terrifying, but they are agents of karmic justice, a necessary and essential part of the moral universe. They don't attack randomly or indiscriminately. They specifically target the wicked, and their punishments, however severe, serve the ultimate purpose of purification and cosmic balance. This protective quality becomes even clearer when you examine Japanese architecture and spiritual practices. All across Japan, on the roofs of ancient temples, traditional homes, castles, and even some modern buildings, you can find something called an onigawara, literally a demon tile. These are elaborate ceramic tiles sculpted with the fearsome face of an oni, often with bulging eyes, snarling mouths, and prominent fangs. Their purpose? To ward off evil spirits and protect the building and its inhabitants. The logic here is both sophisticated and deeply practical. If you want to keep evil spirits away, what could be more effective than the face of the ultimate demon? It's like posting a "Beware of Dog" sign featuring a picture of a wolf. Just as European cathedrals used gargoyles, grotesque faces designed to scare away demons, the Japanese employed the terrifying visage of the Oni as spiritual security guards. But onigawara tiles aren't just functional, they're also artistic masterpieces, with each one individually crafted by skilled artisans. The faces are incredibly detailed and expressive, showing not just anger or threat, but also wisdom, determination, and sometimes even a kind of grim compassion. These faces suggest that the Oni's role as protector isn't incidental, it's fundamental to their nature. This duality is also at the heart of one of Japan's most famous and widely celebrated festivals, Setsubun, which marks the transition from winter to spring. At this festival, families participate in a ritual called Mei-maki, or bean scattering. People throw roasted soybeans out their doors and windows, shouting, "Oni wa soto, fuku wa achi," demons out, good fortune in. The ritual is designed to drive away the Oni of winter and misfortune, while welcoming the good spirits of spring and prosperity. But here's where it gets interesting. In many towns and regions, Oni aren't just expelled during Setsubun, they're also welcomed and celebrated. Some festivals feature people dressed as Oni who are initially driven away with beans, but then return as benevolent spirits bringing protection, good harvests, and prosperity for the coming year. These good Oni are often depicted with gentler expressions and are sometimes even portrayed as reluctant to leave, suggesting that their protective presence is valued even as their more dangerous aspects are feared. There are entire categories of beneficial Oni in Japanese folklore. Zenkoni, good Oni, are spirits who have learned to control their violent impulses and use their power for protection rather than destruction. Some legends tell of Oni who guard specific locations, mountain passes, bridges, or temples, serving as protectors against bandits, wild animals, or more malevolent supernatural threats. One of the most beloved examples of this complexity is the children's story, Naida Aka Oni, or the Red Oni Who Cried. In this tale, a Red Oni desperately wants to make friends with humans, but they're all terrified of his appearance. His best friend, a Blue Oni, comes up with a generous but heartbreaking plan. The Blue Oni will attack the village so the Red Oni can defeat him and appear as a hero to the humans. The plan works perfectly. The Red Oni drives away the Blue Oni, and is welcomed by the grateful villagers as their protector. But the blue Oni must leave forever to maintain the deception, sacrificing his own happiness so his friend can achieve his dream of acceptance. The story ends with the red Oni finding a note from his friend explaining the sacrifice and expressing hope that the red Oni will be happy, even though they can never meet again. This story is particularly powerful because it presents Oni as capable of deep friendship, selfless sacrifice, and genuine emotion. The red Oni's desire for human companionship and the blue Oni's willingness to sacrifice everything for his friend's happiness show these creatures as fundamentally sympathetic beings whose monstrous appearance masks hearts capable of love and loyalty. The story also addresses one of the central themes in Oni folklore, the question of whether appearance determines nature or whether true character can transcend physical form. The red Oni is good-hearted but looks terrifying. The blue Oni appears equally monstrous but commits an act of such selfless love that it rivals the greatest heroes of legend. The diversity of Oni across different regions of Japan reveals the richness and complexity of this mythological tradition. While Shuten Doji may be the most famous, he's far from the only significant Oni in Japanese folklore. Each region developed its own Oni legends, often reflecting local concerns, geography, and cultural values. In the mountains of northern Japan, you'll find legends of Yamamba and her Oni servants, mountain-dwelling demons who control the harsh winter weather and prey on travelers. These Oni are often depicted as having power over snow and ice, able to create blizzards that can trap entire villages. But they also sometimes serve as guardians of the mountain's sacred spaces, punishing those who would desecrate natural sanctuaries. The coastal regions tell stories of Omi-Oni, sea Oni, massive creatures that rise from the depths during storms to drag ships and their crews to watery graves. These maritime demons often have tentacles instead of arms and can control tsunamis and typhoons. But fishermen also tell stories of sea Oni who guide lost ships to safety or warn of dangerous weather, suggesting that even these oceanic monsters operate according to complex moral codes. One particularly fascinating example is Ibaraki Doji, often described as Shuten Doji's lieutenant or sometimes his rival. According to legend, Ibaraki Doji was even more cunning than his master, capable of sophisticated shape-shifting and psychological manipulation. In the most famous story about him, he appears as a beautiful woman to seduce the warrior Watanabe no Tsuna, only to reveal his true form and attack. Tsuna manages to cut off the Oni's arm, but Ibaraki Doji later retrieves it by disguising himself as Tsuna's own aunt, a level of deception that shows these creatures as master psychologists, not just brute monsters. The story of Rashomon no Oni takes place at the famous gate in Kyoto and involves a different kind of Oni encounter. This demon doesn't run a fortress or command an army. Instead, it haunts a specific location, challenging any warrior brave enough to face it in single combat. The Oni serves as a test of courage and skill, and those who pass earn not just victory, but wisdom about their own capabilities and limitations. Onababa, Demon Hag, represents another fascinating variant. Oni who were once human women, transformed by grief, rage, or desperation into supernatural creatures. These stories often have tragic origins. A mother who loses her children to war or famine, a wife betrayed by her husband, or an elderly woman abandoned by her family. Their transformation into Oni is presented not as evil corruption, but as the natural result of unbearable suffering, and their subsequent actions, while terrible, are portrayed with a degree of sympathy and understanding. The influence of Oni on Japanese art and literature cannot be overstated. From the earliest painted scrolls to contemporary manga, these creatures have served as both inspiration and symbol, evolving with each artistic movement while maintaining their essential character. Medieval art often portrayed Oni in their role as Buddhist hell demons, with elaborate paintings showing the various torments of the afterlife in precise detail. These weren't intended to be entertaining. They were spiritual instruction, showing viewers the consequences of evil actions and the reality of karmic justice. The Oni in these works are terrifying but necessary, their monstrous forms serving the greater good of spiritual education. During the Edo period, 1603 to 1868, Oni began appearing in more secular contexts. Ukiyo-e woodblock prints showed them in kabuki plays, folk tales, and even comedic situations. Artists like Hokusai and Kuniyashi created iconic images of Oni that balance the terrifying and the theatrical, showing these creatures as part of Japan's cultural landscape rather than just religious instruction. The kabuki theater tradition developed elaborate oni roles, with specialized makeup, costumes, and performance techniques. Kabuki oni are often portrayed with exaggerated emotions, not just anger and cruelty, but also sadness, longing, and even humor. These theatrical interpretations helped humanize the oni, showing them as complex characters rather than simple monsters. Literature from the Heian period onward is filled with oni stories, from the classical Kanjaku Monogatari, Tales of Times Now Past, to more recent works. These stories serve multiple functions: entertainment, moral instruction, psychological exploration, and cultural preservation. They show oni in every possible role: villain, victim, guardian, teacher, and sometimes even romantic figure. One particularly influential work is the Taihiki, a 14th-century military chronicle that presents oni as both supernatural threats and symbols of political chaos. In this work, the appearance of oni often signals periods of social upheaval, suggesting that these creatures serve as barometers of societal health. When human society becomes corrupt or unstable, oni appear to either exploit the chaos or restore order through force. The transformation of oni from folkloric figures to anime characters represents one of the most dramatic reimaginings in popular culture. Modern creators have taken the essential elements of oni mythology: the physical power, the moral complexity, the transformation themes, and rebuilt them for contemporary audiences with different values and expectations. Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, provides perhaps the most comprehensive modern interpretation of oni mythology. Musen Kibutsuji serves as a demon king figure reminiscent of Shuten Doji, but with crucial differences that reflect modern storytelling sensibilities. Where Shuten Doji was pure evil requiring righteous heroes to destroy him, Musen is presented as a more complex figure whose own fear of death drives his monstrous actions. The demons in Demon Slayer retain the transformation element from classical oni, humans who become monsters through corruption, but the process is presented as tragic rather than deserved. Characters like Nezuko represent the possibility of redemption, while figures like Akaza show demons struggling with remnants of their human morality. This reflects contemporary values that emphasize rehabilitation over punishment and understanding over condemnation. Jujutsu Kaisen takes a different approach, with curses that embody human negative emotions rather than moral failings. Sukuna, the king of curses, has clear oni influences. He's an ancient, incredibly powerful entity with multiple arms and demonic features. But he exists in a world where the line between human and monster is increasingly blurred. Hell's Paradise, Jigakuraku, directly references Buddhist cosmology and oni mythology, but subverts expectations by showing demons who may actually be victims of circumstances beyond their control. The series plays with the question of whether monsters are born or made, and whether redemption is possible even for the most corrupted beings. These modern interpretations share several key differences from traditional oni folklore. Sympathy and redemption. Classical oni were often irredeemably evil, but modern versions frequently show them as victims of circumstance or capable of change and growth. Individual psychology. Where folkloric oni represented cosmic forces or moral abstractions, anime oni are typically given detailed personal histories and psychological motivations. Visual diversity. Traditional oni had fairly standardized appearances, but modern versions show incredible visual variety while maintaining recognizable elements like horns, fangs, and supernatural power. Moral ambiguity. Classical stories usually had clear good and evil sides, but contemporary works often blur these lines, showing heroes with dark sides and villains with sympathetic motivations. So let's circle back to the anime we know and love, armed now with a deeper understanding of the ancient wellspring from which these modern stories flow. When creators like Koyo Harugattage imagine the demons of Demon Slayer, or when Gij Akutami crafts the curses of Jujutsu Kaisen, they are tapping into a mythological tradition that spans over a millennium of Japanese culture, belief, and artistic expression. The immense physical power that makes anime demons such formidable opponents, that comes directly from the Oni's role as supernatural enforcers capable of reshaping reality itself. The transformation from human to monster that drives so many character arcs, that's the Buddhist concept of corruption making inner evil manifest in physical form. The complex moral questions about redemption, justice, and the nature of evil, those have been central to Oni mythology since its earliest forms. But modern storytellers have made crucial innovations that reflect contemporary values and storytelling techniques. They've shifted focus from cosmic justice to personal tragedy, from moral instruction to psychological exploration, from clear-cut good versus evil to nuanced examinations of human nature. They've taken the iconic visual elements, the horns, the fangs, the incredible strength, the otherworldly presence, and used them as starting points for hundreds of unique designs that range from terrifying to beautiful to tragically sympathetic. Perhaps most significantly, they've humanized the Oni in ways that the original folklore rarely attempted. Where classical Oni were forces of nature or cosmic principles given form, modern Oni are individuals with names, relationships, dreams, and fears. They've been given not just faces, but personalities, backstories, and the possibility of change and growth. This evolution reflects broader changes in how we understand morality, justice, and human nature. The classical Oni existed in a world where evil was absolute and punishment was both necessary and justified. Modern Oni exist in a world where we recognize the complexity of human motivation, the possibility of redemption, and the tragedy inherent in the loss of innocence. Yet for all these changes, the essential power of the Oni remains. They still represent our fears about the darkness within human nature, our concerns about losing our humanity to base impulses, and our need for stories that help us grapple with questions of right and wrong. They remain symbols of transformation, both the terrifying possibility of corruption and the hope of redemption. The Oni of folklore were humanity's attempt to understand and give form to the inexplicable, plagues, disasters, famines, and the capacity for evil that exists within human hearts. They were both the explanation for suffering and the promise that justice, however brutal, would ultimately prevail. Today, they've been reborn as complex characters who help us explore similar questions through the lens of contemporary understanding. The next time you watch your favorite anime or read your favorite manga, look a little closer at that horned demon terrorizing the protagonists or struggling with their own monstrous nature. See past the flashy special attacks and the dramatic speeches to the deeper currents of meaning flowing beneath the surface. You might just catch an echo of a drunken demon king on a mountain fortress, the protective grimace of a temple roof tile, the tragic sacrifice of a blue Oni for his friend's happiness, and the complex, terrifying, and utterly fascinating spirit of the real Oni that continue to haunt and inspire us more than 1,000 years after their first appearance in Japanese folklore. These ancient monsters have proven remarkably adaptable, evolving with each generation while maintaining their essential power to thrill, terrify, and make us question what it truly means to be human. In a world where the line between good and evil seems increasingly complex, the Oni remain relevant not as simple monsters to be defeated, but as mirrors reflecting our own capacity for both creation and destruction, protection and violence, wisdom and folly. What anime or video game Oni do you see in a new light now? How do you think understanding the original folklore changes your appreciation of these modern interpretations? And are there any other mythological figures, from Japan or elsewhere, you'd like me to explore in similar depth? Let me know in the comments below. Your suggestion might just become our next journey into the ancient myths that continue to inspire and shape the modern world of storytelling.